All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Clever Africans.
Hello, everybody.
This guy's munching.
Yes, yes. We're at home. Might as well be comfortable.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So,
Today's episode, well, we did a poll, I believe, a week ago on Twitter, and overwhelming majority of people wanted us to speak about wealth inequality. And I mean, this is a subject that I've I've had some keen interest on for a while now. Obviously, with my finance and econ background, um, it's something that I kind of studied on the side, even though it wasn't really talked about in the classrooms, unfortunately. But it's a very, eye-opening subject, especially if you're coming from a quote-unquote minority group, and you get to see, how it plays out um, in real time, or like, you know, on the ground essentially. So yeah,
can you describe it? Talk about it a bit more.
sure. Well, wealth inequality really isn't something that's new. It's actually been around since you know um the very
Since money,
beginnings. I'm sorry.
since money entered.
Basically, yeah, wealth inequality has existed ever since um like, humans made money essentially. Um, Back then it was whoever had the most cattle. So if you know your neighbor had more cattle, the more cattle your neighbor had, essentially the more wealth he had. And with that wealth came power and all sorts of you know just manipulations of power, because with wealth some people use it for good, but the majority of the times people use their wealth for ulterior motives. And yeah, it plays out throughout history actually. I think something that I really enjoyed studying was like the medieval ages, or the medieval ages, and
Mm-hmm.
how you would have landlords, right? We even use that term to this day, landlords. And they had serfs, or tenants essentially, and the serfs would do all sorts of things for the landlords. They would fight wars. They would be, you know, members of, knights, all of that, right? And you even see all of that play out, in our modern society, right? You have, young people that essentially they can't really afford higher education. So what do? Sometimes they enlist in, the military in order to help them with um, their basic needs, such as like food or clothing, or anything that helps them survive essentially. Meanwhile, um, all of this funding is from essentially like a machine, right? And that's how I see the United States. It's sort of like a machine where um, it's it's managed and run by those who are on top, and the wheels of the machine are kept going by the people that are in the lower rungs of society. So the working class essentially are those that keep the machine running. And yeah, we essentially fuel it, and it's not even something that we do out of conscience, right? Like, we do it in order to survive in the United States, or even in the West, right? We have to work. We have to do jobs in order to, obtain some sort of income. But
Okay.
you see how, like, it's not really, like, the wealth isn't really distributed in a fair way, if I should say.
Mm. So a question here, I guess before, is you're identifying wealth inequality as the difference in earning potential or earning actualization. So
Mhm.
individuals who you see as the managers are the one not making the most money, and those who are the core ground of workers are the ones who are not being compensated for as much.
Right, right.
Um, I guess it made me think about different societies, and in the book Things Fall Apart, there is a Okonkwo who um, is basically trying not to be like his father,
Mm,
who did not have any titles in their land, right? In their land, having a title, I mean, having cassava and lots of cassava, because it was
mm,
the hardest crop to grow,
right.
cultivate.
Yeah.
Um, just having a lot of cassava, obviously, you're gonna have other livestock, etc., like the palm wine tappers and all those. And Okonkwo also was revered as somebody who was a fighter who was strong. They would wrestle
Right.
and they'll carry on messages to other towns as a force of respect. And so in their system, it was in their own way, their own meritocracy, right? The more titles you had, the more esteemed you were as a man.
Mhm.
Okonkwo's dad had no titles and owed a lot of people. So from his youth, he decided um, it, it was about the measure of the man and what the man could do in this their version of their meritocracy, more so than what was supposed to be provided to them in that case. Like there was definitely a council of elders who believed in their deities and all that. And the book goes on, but you see that there is a system where, in a way, you can see the similarities to systems we have all over the world,
Yeah. Yeah.
where people want to be able to earn their keep, right? I mean, he started because he took an investment loan from one of the best um, yam um, cultivators in the land, and he had a reputation for being a strong wrestler and a strong guy. So the guy gave him more than everybody else who had come to him. So he was able to earn his title, you know, um, from his popularity, his strength, and also his access to go and ask, and then be trusted enough based on his quality of sheer characteristics to get the loan to start his own yam.
Mhm.
So his own yam cultivation, right? And he had three three wives at a point. So that's one cultural application here, right?
Yeah.
Like if there is wealth inequality. A man who had no title was seen as not a man at all,
Mm. Yeah.
right? So we see this even through the book that this is not just a phenomenon of just United States, but it's just a phenomenon in human nature, you know. Um, and so wealth equality will be there. I mean, even the Bible talks about it, right? You know, we should want to be the lenders and not the borrowers, so we can help those who need, right? So there's just that understanding that somehow, unfortunately, there is a wealth inequality, and people will be at different places in their life as well. They can go from being at a place where they're poor to being at a place where they're wealthy, right? Um, so then my question is, if wealth inequality exists, um, is it a bad thing? It's a
Ooh,
big question.
yeah, that's a good question, man. I guess we're getting we're getting philosophical here, but I feel as though with wealth inequality, then it's something that I'm presuming has to exist in an imperfect world, right? There has to be individuals that have, and there has to be individuals that don't have,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but then that brings into play, you know, us individuals, like once we are able to, harness our power of being together, then that brings into play the possibility of not having to deal with wealth inequality, right? Because then people are empowered to make a society where wealth inequality isn't a thing.
Mm.
You know.
Okay. So, what do you think about how this plays out into this current pandemic, right?
Mm.
How individuals are getting stimulus checks, the government is sending money, right, to people and to businesses
Yeah.
and to corporations and whatnot. How do you think that plays into the whole idea of wealth inequality?
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like with this whole pandemic, it's really uncovering and unmasking, no pun intended. It's really just revealing things that I feel like we've just brushed under the rug, essentially, right? And it's really bringing into the light everything that's wrong with, you know, our society today, whether it be like the current food supply and how consumers don't really know how their food is even brought from the farm to the grocery store. And it's just uncovering a lot of things. And even with how, you know, economic stimulus is being rolled out and played out, you're seeing countries, essentially bankrolling trillions of dollars by the quarter just to, sustain their economies, not even trying to, like, the focus has shifted from growing their economies to sustaining their economies,
Mm-hmm.
because it looks as though a lot of the Western world or developed economies are really not stable at the moment, right? And even recently, there was news about how China has abandoned their their GDP policy, essentially, because every year, like, they they look for a specific number that the country has to grow by, and it seems as though coronavirus is, like, you know got them off that track completely. So with all these programs that different governments are trying, it's really just exposing those that have and those that don't have, essentially.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Mhm.
All right. Wait. So you're saying, um, especially looking at countries like, I feel like every country has its target rate, right? Where they want to end up or reach per year, just like any business would. Because countries have to run themselves like businesses, essentially, one way or one form. For the government. Excuse me. So, this whole idea with China, what are you like saying? Actually, like, because they're off the target. That what? I don't really get the point.
I was just stating how um usually the usually China's economic strategy is to grow by a specific amount.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I feel as no, not even I feel as though there was just a recent report that came out of the country, and they've abandoned their GDP target for the year. And that's how the pandemic has essentially affected their economic growth, or their need to fixate on a specific number.
Mm.
So for most countries, it seems as though this, like, the focus has shifted from growth to survival. It's like they're on survival mode essentially.
I mean, I feel like that is natural. I mean, they're trying to survive first. I mean, honestly, if a country's prepared,
That's
you
another.
know,
Yeah.
um, for such a thing, it wouldn't hit them as largely. And we don't know if even if it might still be able to hit them as largely, right? But who knows what a preparation calls for, all that. That's a whole nother conversation. But how does this affect the individuals in the society,
Mm-hmm.
right? How does this affect the wealth gap? Does it make it stronger? Or is there, like, what do you think is going to happen, let's say, for a year from now? Is the average individual going to have a better living condition or a worse living condition?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you already kind of you kind of see today how, the next few years are going to play out, and you have to look at, the labor market, essentially the job market, and you have to see
Mm-hmm.
how that's been hard hit already. And it's not like it's going to come back instantly, right? It's not like once they loosen all these restrictions, well, everybody's going to go back to work, because that's not going to be the case. There's going to be some,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be not even some, there's going to be quite a large amount of people that won't be able to go back to, a 9 to 5, or won't be able to go back to accumulating a steady income, because, you know, even when I walk around, the Bronx and some of the neighborhoods around here, like you can just feel that some of these, shops and stores, they might not come back. They might not recover from this, right? It doesn't matter how much, you know, um, PPP checks they get from the government. It's just, you can't really come back from stuff like this, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just some industries were better positioned for something like this to happen. For example, the Internet of Things, everything that can essentially connect to the internet and help individuals connect. You've seen how that's benefited from, this pandemic, and you've seen how, those individuals that had that foresight, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
you've seen how they've benefited financially, obviously, the stock market, and various other ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just a classic case of, just trying to essentially have a society where, and I don't think that's the plan. Like, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here. I don't think that's the plan, or the grand scheme of things. But it just looks as though that's how things are gonna play out. There's gonna be a larger divide of those that have and those that have not.
Mm-hmm. I think that's interesting. I think we're at 43 minutes here on the Zoom. I don't know when it's going to cut off, but I do think that there's a potential for there to also be somehow tragedy brings us closer in some ways, some form, and because people are also seeing this pandemic as an issue, it might spark a creative outlet of innovation. where people want to be able to work without having to be in these spaces all the time. Just it's a new normal. I mean, this is not. It's happened at different points in history. Influenza, there's people who were quarantine babies. You know what I'm saying? So there's really nothing new under the sun. We're just discovering things as things goes along. You know, and technology's changed over time. So the way we can recognize something is different than the way we could recognize it back then. But I think presented with each crash or each downfall, there's a boost again. And that's the resilience nature that we as human beings have been given to constantly make it. You know, um, I do think that there are some people and a lot of people who are going to come out of this with their chance. You know, things that they've been working on for 5, 10 years prior to this, which this thing has now given them an opportunity of something that they were um, trying to do. So, I think it just might flip in a different way. I think for now, things are low because people were adjusting to we didn't know, just give it a shock. It's just like hearing bad news. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to be upset at first. You're going to be shocked. You don't know what's going on. But then as you think about it, then you strategize and things build up. And I think that's what our human nature has. In terms of like the wealth inequality, I do think at this point is going to stay either the same um, or like, I feel like it's like right now is definitely different. Like a lot of people are also losing money as well because the market went down. But who's being affected by that? That's a whole different question. But we know a lot of people out of jobs. But I think over time, at least for the 3 months, let's say from March, April, May, June, 4 months, at least, I mean, at the minimum, people are getting something, and not everybody's getting something, but people are getting something. And that just also means that we can print stuff out and people get that as money. We could talk about inflation and all that stuff, but or where this money is coming from. I saw somebody put a tweet recently talking about the U.S. owes this trillion amount of dollars, and it's trying to give me a credit score. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, you can still have, I guess, a good credit score with a lot of debt if it's based on the ratio which you do have. I don't know. But there's always a different standard set for evaluation. But I think all in all, I'm just saying that there's always an opportunity in the lesson. Right? There's always an opportunity in the lesson, and it's very difficult for certain communities to get access to that opportunity or to even know about that opportunity. I think those are the ways in which the clever African is trying to do, right? Get the information out there so individuals may understand certain concepts. No matter what era or what place we're in, once you're alive, there's something that you can do. There's always hope. And so um, fighting fighting wealth inequality is just it's a big battle. We live in a world where things are not perfect, so we will have imperfect systems, but we can do our best to create systems that will have more people okay than not. Um, and the goal is that all people will be okay, and that's a big goal that we'll reach. For me and my belief, when God comes. You know what I'm saying? Until then, I feel like we do our best with the best that we've given and the purpose that we've been designed with to create those opportunities for others if we have it. So the little we know, we can show somebody else who doesn't have it. Well, and that's where outreach to our communities come in. But I think as individuals who will be listening to this at any point, the mark is to figure out how do we help ourselves and how do we help others who are in the same situation as we are in. and doing that reflection, even when you don't have the biggest of the wealth, makes a difference. Do what you can with the tools you've been given, so that more opportunity can be created, those without the tools that you already have. And I think that principle is what keeps us going no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great speech, man. Notes for president. Notes for president for sure. So I guess we're gonna wrap it up. This is pretty lengthy, man. I mean,
Yeah, I mean it's good. It's good
it's good.
quality.
It's good, man. It's good.
Good quality. It's important topics that I would want to hear
Of
about.
course, of course,
Um, and yeah, we got to keep the dialogue going
of course.
for individuals. We have to find the light in each dark tunnel. Yes, we'll talk about the issues that are going on, but at the end of the day, it's like we still gotta live, bro. You still gotta live, and you still gotta enjoy the life you live. It's not every day where you want to see Wahala. You know, so how do we get through this? We always will, or we always do better. And we all have our privileges, and that's something that we acknowledge. And I'm glad I have the privileges that I have to be able to do what I want to do with what I have. So providing just a little bit more privilege to somebody else is one of the best acts that we can do. To bring each other up. So I think that's the COVID-19. For me, that's the COVID-19
That's the rep
reflection.
you're getting.
Yeah, at least when it comes to wealth inequality, you know, as a potential and viable solution. I feel like we got to use the tools that we always have in our hands.
Mm,
And as you use those tools, we'll have the ability to get even better tools and more tools. You know, you still want that vintage wrench. You know what I'm saying? You still want it in your arsenal. Like, yeah, that's that trusty good old. You know what I mean? When things get down to the nitty gritty, you can still take that wrench and use it. The good old. You know, that's that lifetime warranty wrench. You know what I'm saying? That's your
mm,
experience. So that's how I feel. It was good.
for
Any
sure.
last thoughts?
Ooh, I mean, this is wealth inequality. This is very lengthy topic that you definitely should stretch out. Um, I feel as though, yeah, um, as I stated earlier, this pandemic has just revealed a lot that's wrong with our current society, and we still have a chance. We still have a chance to essentially create for ourselves and for future generations a better way forward. It just
Yeah,
takes it just takes us as a collective to understand and realize that what we see around us can be changed. And
that's a
we don't
fact.
have to we don't have to stay and live in the status quo. We can create something different, something sustainable that can live on and flourish. And everybody can eat, right? It's not just a few people at the very top that are supposed to be dropping every day. It's
Yeah,
everything can be shared.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely think we're not only just seeing the things that are wrong, but we're also seeing things that are right. Good people looking out for essential workers, like people paying attention to those that a lot of times were kind of taken for granted in so many ways, the work that they were doing. And so there became a spotlight on people who, haven't had a spotlight on them for some time because, at this time they were the essential workers,
Mm,
you Um, and so it's been good. Like, like our teachers are getting more love, and parents are understanding more what teachers are going through on a
mm,
daily basis. The kids at home, the families are coming closer together.
mm,
They're spending more time. People are getting to know their spouses even more, and just the heart of like unity through something that touches anybody, no matter what your wealth is, right? No matter how wealthy you are, this thing touches you. So it brought a sense of community throughout the entire world in this space. Regardless of all the things that weren't good, there are some strong points that have come out of this, and I think it would help going forward in any way.
Well said, my brother. Well said.
Yeah. So that is it, man. If you don't have nothing to say, we're closing out another episode of the TCA Talks chat with Kwabena and Kwabena. Yes, sir.
Out, signing out.
You guys have a good one.